Okay, so this is kind of a part 2 to the video that I made yesterday, though I think really it works as a standalone video, so don't click off. Yesterday I left you all on a bit of a cliffhanger on my breakdown of Meghan Markle's latest podcast episode, but essentially all that you really need to know for today's video is that we're going to have a look at Meghan's really intriguing conversation with comedian Margaret Cho, and they're going to be discussing the tropes, the nasty, horrible tropes that are holding Asian American women back. Apparently everyone calls Asian women dragon ladies in America, and that they think Asian women are sexy and dangerous. And my controversial take was that that's a pretty good racial prejudice. I mean, as far as racial prejudices go. Sexy and dangerous. So after a bewildering 9-minute introduction from Meghan Markle about how growing up in LA, she spent all of her time eating Korean food with her Korean friends and visiting Korean spas where women of all ages from 9 to 90 walked around naked and swimsuits were banned. After all that, I think she realised that the Dragon Lady thing, which was the title of the podcast, demystifying the myth of the Dragon Lady or something like that, I think she realised it didn't really have the weight behind it. Firstly, because I don't think it's really a thing, dragon ladies. But also, it's not really like a bad thing to be called dangerously sexy. I don't think most Asian women would have a problem with being called dangerously sexy. I wouldn't have a problem with being called dangerously sexy. So it would appear that upon realising that the dragon lady thing wasn't really going to be enough, Meghan Markle decided that she would start the interview with Margaret Cho by asking her if anyone had ever called her a slut.
I'm so excited to talk to you, honestly. I mean, when we were conceiving this show and just the idea for me of archetypes and these labels that so many of us are confronted with constantly that try to hold us back. And there's so many of them, from bimbo to diva to slut.
Yeah.
Any number of them. Have you ever experienced being called or identified as any of those, for example?
Oh, all the time.
Classic. An instant classic interview. Better than anything Dick Cavett ever did. Johnny Carson, eat your heart out. Joe Rogan, you could learn a thing or two. Look at how enthusiastically she answers that question as well. Anyone ever called you a slut? Or a bimbo? Oh, all the time.
Oh, all the time. Actually, I mean, any time I assert myself, it's like I've got an attitude.
I'm going to be brutally honest. It might be the voice. If you're there yapping away at some big-time Hollywood producer, producers are people are pretty disagreeable folks most of the time anyway. Their time is money. They're kind of stressed out. They're having a bad day and Margaret Cho comes up to them like, why can't I do it this way? There is a possibility that on occasion, one of those big-time, big-shot Hollywood producers will turn around and just be like, how about you shut up, bitch, because I'm paying for all of this. Which is by no means the way an industrial dispute should be settled. Certainly not in this progressive day and age. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying that I bet that's the way it goes down. Why don't you try nagging a little bit less in a slightly softer tone?
I'm like, no, I don't have dude, I just want to.
Okay, that laugh's not going to help either.
Dude, I want chips. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's almost as if people sort of assume when women are asking for what they need, they're somehow a drain.
I once said to my mother that being around her is like Superman when someone brings kryptonite into the room. And that isn't the funny thing, because I thought it was a good analogy. But the funny thing to me was her response wasn't, how dare you, or shock, or anything. She said, who have you been talking to? So I'm guessing that's a thing that women get accused of quite a lot, nagging. And that's just not true, is it? Women, they don't nag. No.
And it's very different from when men ask for what they need. When men ask for what they need, it's like, oh, he knows what he wants. He knows who he is.
Right, he's
but
clear.
When women, he's clear. But what women do, it's somehow, and an offense.
Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe we expect women to be a bit more agreeable than men, and that could be partly a social construct or partly biological. Maybe, you know, back in the Stone Age, women had to be more agreeable, had to get along with people more, a bit, kind of thing, you know? And the men had to compete. Who's going to fuck up that mammoth this week? It ain't going to be your wife, you know? Gender equality, when you can throw a spear 30 yards, bitch, get back in the cave. So on a serious note, then, yeah, maybe there are some unfair expectations on women even today. I myself resent anyone asking me to do anything, because I never ask anyone else to do anything. I'm very individualistic, right? I don't like asking other people to do stuff for me. And I don't know, my wife will just like lie down in bed and she'll be like, oh, get me a glass of water. And I'm like, fuck you, bitch, under my breath. And then, of course, I go and get the glass of water because I'm the bitch. I'm joking. But I don't know. It's hard to say. Do I resent it more when a woman asks me to do something? I don't think so. Do other people? I don't know. I think I'd resent Margaret Cho screeching at me, even if it was just to pass her a bag of chips. Like, get your own chips, under my breath, and then I'd pass her the chips, so as not to prolong the interaction any further.
Through the years, Margaret, though, she hasn't let this kind of pushback stop her. She keeps reaching.
Screeching.
She keeps striving for greater representation and inclusivity.
Oh, God, what does that even mean?
And she keeps lifting up her own voice.
Yeah. Yes, she does.
I think that comedians essentially have one joke that they find different ways of telling.
Are we finally getting into Jungian archetypes? There is only one story told 1,000 ways. I can't believe it.
So my essential joke is, I'm here, but I'm not supposed to be here. So every joke has that DNA in it.
Sounds interesting.
So I'll skip through the next few minutes of the podcast because they get into the history of the representation of Asian women in American cinema. And I found it a bit dull. And also redundant because I could just come back at them and say, well, let's look at Nigeria now that's banned diversity. They've literally banned diversity on TV. They don't want any white faces. Why don't we talk about the representation of white men in Nollywood? Not very diverse. Anyway, I get it. We're supposed to be more progressive than Nigeria and whatever. It's just boring. Who cares? I mean, yes, I care. But, you know, it's just not funny, is it? And I'm here to find funny stuff.
The power and the impact of these stereotypes that have the ability to strip away the humanity of entire groups of people, it cannot be underestimated. People, all people, are multidimensional and layered.
I always find it bizarre that people don't hear the dissonance in their head. The people who defend intersectionality, who believe that everything about your personality is defined by your ethnicity, your race, your gender, your sex, your income, all of those things define a person, which to a degree is true. And yet that means, by definition, that everyone is an individual and none of those one things, none of those one axes can tell you anything about that person. And then they say things like that. We're all multidimensional. We're all layered. What, even cis white men? Am I multidimensional and layered? Or do I only have two axes that matter?
Like Margaret Cho. I mean, it's just so interesting because I think when you just feel as though you aren't seen,
Yeah.
or you're all just archetyped into the same thing that no one can differentiate.
Stereotyped! It's stereotyped!
The you-ness and all of that. And you have a very unique story. I mean, everyone has their own unique story, but even just your background and where you grew up and how you grew up, I think is so fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I grew up, and I became a comedian in the midst of AIDS activism.
Oh, that's funny, because I actually thought I could see some parallels between your brand of comedy and AIDS. I'm sorry, that was dark. I apologise.
It's kind of where I got my start as being a comic.
I'm sorry to pick up on every little thing that Meghan does, and I don't try to do that. I try to let a few things slide because I think we're dissecting her in too much detail sometimes. But notice every few seconds when her interviewees are speaking, she makes this little whimpering sound, like really weird. Listen again.
As being a comic and doing shows. My parents owned a gay bookstore because my dad loves male attention. He's very handsome.
I'm sorry, what? Her father opened a gay bookstore because he loves male attention, and they lived in San Francisco. Sounds like Margaret Cho was the victim of oppression.
And South Korea's primary export is male beauty.
Is that true?
Oh yeah, South Korea's got basically no important industry other than sort of androgynous looking men, male beauty, essentially. That's their main export, well, right behind electronic equipment, nuclear reactors, boilers, other machinery, tram lines, cars, plastics, mineral fuels, oil, distillation products, optical, phototechnical, medical apparatus, iron and steel, ships and other floating structures, organic chemicals, articles of iron and steel, essential oils, perfumes, cosmetics, toiletries, pharmaceutical products, various miscellaneous other chemical products, rubbers, inorganic chemicals, precious metal compound isotopes, and pearls, precious stones, metals, coins, copper, aluminium. And basically just male beauty is the thing that they're known for. That's what brings the most money, K-pop,
It is.
Oh my gosh, I had no
Male
idea.
beauty. Well, if you think about BTS, you think about all the K-drama,
Oh,
all the
wow.
stars, all the men. The men are highlighted far more than the women.
I'm going to have to leave this ridiculous conversation at this point. If people want me to finish this video, like make a third part to it, the conversation with Meghan and Margaret Cho, I'll do it. But I don't know. I think I'm done for today. It's just getting ridiculous. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'll see you in the next one.